Welcome to It's Not Really About Dance, a podcast on all of the things we're learning about raising healthy, happy, and wholesome kids and teenagers in today's world through the context of competitive dance. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Beth, and we believe that competitive kids' activities are about way more than performance or awards. They're about teaching resilience, humility, confidence, and heart. Each episode, we'll use the context of dance to dive into real talk, practical tips, and stories to inspire you to parent with purpose. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's great to be with you today. We are in the summertime and got a little bit of a rainstorm actually going on right now. How's everything with you, Sarah?
Yeah, it's good. I feel like we're kind of settling into summer. We've been out of town the last few days. School ended and then we went right out of town. So it feels like this is the first real week of summer that we are kind of figuring out what our new routine is and settling into things, but it's good. We're enjoying it.
Yeah. So we today are going to dive right in to this topic. It's really about, and we are doing today, perseverance. Yes. And the way we are going to define perseverance is refusing to give up when life gets hard. And so this one might be a little more obvious about where we would see it in competitive activities. But I hope we can highlight some nuanced things that maybe you haven't thought of before. And as always, we love to hear from you and hear your stories. And so if you listen to this today and it stirs up something in you and you want to share a great story with us, we'd love to hear that as well. So we're going to start out just kind of wrapping our heads around why perseverance. And I think growing up in the 2020s, our kids just don't have to wait for resolution in the way that I did when I was growing up. I mean, my preteen and young teenage years were the age of dial-up internet. Or I might have been waiting on somebody to come pick me up and I didn't have any way of knowing what their status was.
There was no Life 360 to track their location.
Right. Or like getting answers to stuff. You know, I still remember going off to college and our university had this hotline you could call, and it was like this whole phenomenon that if you called this number, they could answer any question, and it basically was Alexa, but it was humans.
But it was also like they had to answer. So it became a whole game of like, what crazy question could you come up with to call and see if they could give you the answer to it?
Right. But our kids like would have no understanding or appreciation of this because they do it all day long.
And they'd be like, that's dumb.
Like they can get the answer to anything instantly. And so that stuff's all kind of mild and ordinary, but it also meant a longer lag time for resolution in bigger stuff. There wasn't an app for everything, you know, like even like medical solutions now. There is crazy technology and just experts who can solve things that we couldn't solve. Academic challenges and goals. There's an app for everything that helps you achieve your goals. I learned how to French braid my kids' hair with YouTube.
Yes.
You know, that wasn't a thing when we were growing up. Like, so today's world just allows us to not have to wait on things or to persevere and keep searching for answers and keep searching for resolution in things. I think the whole premise of this podcast and the reason we started it in the first place was calling it It's Not Really About Dance is you and I both had gotten our kids into this competitive activity that we kind of thought was just a hobby and didn't even realize that like, whoa, this is a context for life skill development in a way that we had no idea. All these challenges that they have to cope with by being in competitive dance, they're doing it in like a kid-friendly way in an activity that they enjoy, which is really cool. But it's like a practice playground for life in the way we practiced as kids, just like waiting on normal stuff that they don't have to wait on, but they do it in the context of these activities. So it's kind of neat.
I actually like ran across I think it was a YouTube video, like it came up in my suggested things about how millennial kids from the 80s and 90s, like our brains were wired differently than the way kids' brains are now. And in this video, they were specifically referencing video games and how when we were kids and like playing the Nintendo, you had 3 lives, you had no saves. And if, Mario got hit too many times by the shell, you were done and you were back at level 1. So it made our brains able to handle frustration tolerance, to
Mm.
understand like this didn't work out for me the 4th or the 5th or even the 10th time, and like you had to just start over and try again because you wanted to push through and finish that level or the game. But that now, I mean, games are designed to hold kids' attention forever. I mean, they like Roblox, there's no end to that. Or even if it is a game, it auto saves every 30 seconds, or they get hints, or you can just pull up online how to solve the puzzle or finish the thing. Like, there's no opportunity for kids to have to push through those hard things. And I think that shows up in a lot of ways. I mean, I know as a school teacher, seeing the lack of frustration tolerance in kids, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you see that in a church setting working with kids too, that it wires their brains differently.
Sure. I mean, we had like dealing with stress in little things all the time that they aren't. And so it's no wonder that anxiety is at an all-time high right now because people aren't being given the skill, like they're not getting practice coping with in the little stresses.
Right.
So then when real stuff hits you, you don't know how to cope with it.
Right. Yeah, we learned that on little silly video games like Tetris when it starts stacking and gets faster and faster. Like that is a safe stress that we had to cope with, that I think in the grand scheme of things, parents were trying to protect their kids from that sort of thing, but it really has caused problems and a lot of fallout, like you said, anxiety and things like that. So that is a really wild dance, and competitive activities can be stressful and not always in a good way. It does often teach them the frustration tolerance and how to deal with stress and scary things in an environment that actually is pretty safe, even
Sure.
though the stakes can feel high sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, to do competitive activities, you have to have perseverance by
Mhm.
nature because what it is refusing to give up when life gets hard. So it is hard. Like,
Right.
that's the nature of it. So you either persevere
Or you don't do
or
it.
you quit. Like,
Yeah.
and this, you gave up. You're not going to instantly be at the top. There are going to be people better than you. And you're going to have to take on skills that you haven't mastered. And so it sets you up. You can't avoid the perseverance life skill if you're in this activity. It's like a
Right.
given one.
No one escapes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and all of that is to say that, of course, we are not saying that there aren't circumstances in which it is unhealthy to try to push through certain things. There are plenty of opportunities in which maybe walking away from something is the healthy choice. So there's a fine balance in knowing what is healthy perseverance and pushing through things, and what is really causing damage or something that you need to not be a part of.
Yeah,
So,
we've talked about that a bunch
yes.
in previous episodes, so we're not negating any of that.
Totally. Yeah. And for the purposes of this episode, we're going to focus on conversations we've been able to have with our kids, or lessons that maybe we have learned about perseverance through our experiences in competitive dance. But like with all things, this could, of course, be applicable to any competitive activity. So if your kids are not dancers, I think that you will really find a lot of truth here, and we hope that you hear the things we're saying and you're like, yes, we experience that too, in insert whatever your kid's activity of choice is. So, Beth, do you
Or
want to?
your life hobby
Or
that
your-
you do.
Yes. Yeah, like I tried to learn to crochet one time. I did not persevere. that that was a hard quit. I could not do it. So, Beth, why don't you start us off with one of your examples?
Yeah, the first one is probably the most obvious, but it's just that you have to show up day after day and week after week in order to show progress.
Mhm.
So there are things out of your control. There are setbacks due to illness or injury. And it can be really frustrating. So having the patience to wait for things and the steady commitment to work hard in the appropriate doses to get you back to where you were, especially with those kind of setbacks. Schedule and life sometimes pulls you in a lot of different directions. It makes it difficult to make this a priority, but you have to show up day after day, week after week in order to show progress. And so I've seen kids on our team choose other things like social things and then get frustrated that they get left behind. And then I also see other kids on our team get irritated with the ones who don't prioritize it in the way that they do. So anything that you're going to excel at a high level, it just takes that kind of push. Actually, the healthiest moments I've seen on our team have been when I've seen kids clustered together who are in the same headspace that year with what kind of drive they're feeling to persevere and really push. So, like, for example, if you have a small group who is like feeling a mild level of wanting to be involved in competitive dance, and this is a new opportunity, but maybe they don't want to live and breathe it every day of the week. Having those kids be together, it helps them mildly level up and persevere in just adding that new thing in, because a competitive version of your activity in general is a level up from recreational. So, anybody that's like on a competitive team, it's automatically going to create some perseverance, but there's tiers within that. There are kids who are willing to eat, sleep, and breathe the thing. And usually for a season, it's rare to see a kid that for 10 straight years just wants to do nothing but that.
Right.
But if they're in a season where they're like, I love this and I want to do it all the time, having those kids clustered together and they all have that drive, it just can be a really cool level up moment, watching them persevere and work through and like cross into new levels. But having them grouped in those ways, the years that I've seen that happen, both sets of kids tend to thrive.
And I think that there's a balance too between the kids who maybe aren't quite there yet being inspired by the ones who eat, sleep, and breathe it. And then they realize that they want that too and they're pulled up by that. I think that's a really cool thing
Mhm.
for a kid to get to experience.
Yeah, and so at least in competitive dance, our kids are in multiple dance routines. And so if they have some routines where they can experience both sides of that,
Hmm.
like you said, they'll have some things that they're working towards where maybe they're not feeling as motivated and there's somebody near them who's really motivated that, like you said, inspires them. And the ones, I know we're talking about perseverance, but the ones who are super inspired to have a little bit of patience,
Hmm.
for the others to come along. But then in the same way, to have some opportunities where they're kind of like right, not just at the skill level with other people, but the motivation level,
Hmm.
to have like some times of the week when they get to be with the people who have kind of the same drive level that they do
Yes.
is really inspiring
Yeah,
usually. So,
for sure.
what about you? Have you got something?
Yes, I think one thing that I know my girls have experienced as part of competitive dance is that sometimes there can be something that is truly unfair that took place, and you just have to push through that. So, for example, my younger daughter, at a convention, this was last year, got picked to perform in the closing show. It was like all the scholarship finalists got to perform their little combo they had learned in convention class in the closing show. And she was so excited to get to be in that. And so, I think there were maybe like 10 to 15 little girls up there doing this little dance on the stage at the closing show. And when they got up there, whoever was running the sound played the wrong section of music. So it was only a 20 to 30-second little combo, but the person running the sound played the wrong 20 to 30 seconds of the song. So they were all kind of confused, and they sort of tried to do the dance, but the counts were off, and you could tell that they were flustered and they weren't really sure what to do. And so everybody clapped and they all came off stage, and everyone was kind of confused and was like, okay, whatever. I mean, it was just some little thing that they did. But my daughter came, she found me in the crowd, and she was just like so shaken and rattled. And I was like, hey, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Everybody was in the same boat. It's no problem. So then the next older group goes. And then a few minutes later, we see all of those same little girls go back out on stage and they got to do a do over, but nobody told us. Like, I think most of the other girls who were in it were all of the same studio. And my daughter was the only one from our studio, and I think what happened was some of the moms of those other little girls told someone at the competition that there had been a problem and that they wanted a chance to go again. But instead of making sure that everybody who had been picked was there, they just let the ones who were lingering backstage go and do it again. And so my daughter, who was already feeling a little bit embarrassed, had to sit in the audience and watch them get to have a do-over, and nobody told her. So it was like a double whammy of embarrassment because she felt like she messed up, even though that's not what happened, and then being left out on top of that. And that wasn't anybody's intention at all, but it's how she felt. I mean, she
Sure.
was 9 at the time, and when I tell you she cried for days, she cried about it for days. And she said, I don't ever want to go to a convention again. I mean, like for a little while, she was like, I'm not doing a convention ever again because I don't ever want to be in that situation again. And of course, time went on and she didn't feel like that. And we talked about it and we got to the next dance season and she pushed through that though. She realized that her desire to want to dance and to be in the classes and do the things had to outweigh the fear of that bad thing happening to her again. I mean, I think the same thing happens with kids who have solos and they forget a part of the solo. I mean, I think that sometimes those little setbacks like that can really be hard on a kid and they have to choose whether or not they're going to push through that difficult feeling. There may be a negative association now with that thing, and they just have to decide that the benefit outweighs the risk and that that's something that they're going to have to push through and not just quit because something made you uncomfortable or made you feel upset or even made you feel embarrassed for some reason, but that's not a reason to just never do that thing ever again.
Yeah, that's a great example.
All right, what about you?
Okay, my next conversation that we've had is just that we sometimes have to work hard within the confines of casting and structure that's beyond our control. Sometimes you don't get the part you wanted for the show, or sometimes you don't get put in the group dance that you had hoped for. And you then spend, in our context, you spend an entire season working for this thing where you're placed. And in some ways, missing out on working for an opportunity that others have or that you would have hoped for. And sometimes you're giving it your all, but other people are more featured than you are. And probably the most prominent story of this I have is one of my kids. We had a year that we were on the way to Nutcracker auditions, and they were being held on it was kind of like the first day back to school or something like that. It was very chaotic. Traffic in town was crazier than it ever is. And we were just trying to get there, trucking it, stressing, getting across town. And this is my child of my 3 that usually just needs to get somewhere kind of early and acclimate to their environment and get in the right headspace. But we did not have
There's no time.
luxury of doing that. And so we rolled in, on 2 wheels, pushing her out the door, going into this audition, which is not what you want, but it's in our studio. And so, it threw her off. And I think she was just kind of scattered and, from what I understand, was not focused. I think she was 7 or 8. She was young and she was not focused during the audition and stuff. And after the audition, I actually had one of the people in charge kind of ran out to me and let me know, I need you to know that your kid was talking during the audition. It's a thing that you don't do. And I knew it was man, I didn't get her in the right headspace before we got in there. And so sure enough, when casting came out, some of her closest friends had featured parts and she didn't get that, She was excluded from it. And it was such a big thing because it's you now have to wait a whole year to prove yourself again.
Yeah.
And you're going to spend an entire season just not doing that. And it was devastating to her. But I will say, I'm so proud of the way that she was willing to not walk away at that point
Mhm.
and willing to focus in. And time has passed, and we've had plenty of redemption for that, you
Yeah.
know? But I've had that with all of my girls over and over in our context. They watch different opportunities given to different people. And the way kids are, especially because things are so instant gratification, like,
Mhm.
and waiting a whole year for something or for another season of something, it feels like an eternity ago. Like
Forever.
you don't even hardly remember like the last time you did this. And so sometimes it's like they will get a really special, awesome part. And then a few months later, they don't get a great opportunity and they're like in their heads about it. And I'm like,
You
I
just
mean,
had this
you
thing.
kind of just did a major thing. Don't you think somebody else needs a turn? And they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Cool. And so that's a big part of perseverance, too. That's like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. If you're going to be involved in whatever this is, you've got to look past the one thing that's right in front of you. And I think the older my kids get and the deeper we get into this, the more I realize that the world of these activities is big and small at the same time. And it's big in a sense that, like, if kids have goals and dreams, it can be really overwhelming to know what's the next best move? What's the strategy to move me towards that? Because there's like too many choices. But it's also small to where networking matters a lot and like experiences that you've had and who you've been connected with. So you reach a point, and I'm speaking a lot more about my high schooler now, but they start to have some specialized skills needed for whatever track they're wanting to go into. And they can sometimes it's different than like just missing out on a part in a show. Sometimes they feel like if I don't do this one intensive or if I don't get this one connection, then I no longer can have a career in this. You know, like my pathway is cut short. And we have confines that we don't have any control over. So, like, for example, if you don't really know the dance world very much, it's not just there's just dancers. Some of them go the more like college dance team track or like going more the like Dallas Cowboys cheerleader style type stuff. So they need a lot of hip hop and they need a lot of precision work. They need acro. Some dancers are going more the Broadway or cruise line performance type track. And so they need character work. They need tap. They need voice. Some of them are going more the like ballet company track or something in this industry. They just need a huge volume of bar exercises and point work and that kind of stuff that most studios cannot possibly offer all of those things at the level that's going to get you to like a beyond high school career for those kind of things. And so we can find ourselves limited at times by the confines of where we live and our schedule and what's offered at our studio. Right now, we don't have acro offered at our studio. And yet acro is something that for at least one of my kids, it needs to stay clean at least a moderate level or it's like a deal breaker. And this isn't like a we think it is. It's like literally on paper
You know it's a
requirement that you
requirement.
have to be able to do certain things for these goals. We don't need Cirque du Soleil level here, but we've got to be able to do clean aerials or we can't make a college dance team.
Right.
You know, those kinds of things. But you can't train in acro virtually. It's not safe. And the best provider for acro in our area has a schedule that conflicts with our dance schedule.
Yeah.
And we have made a commitment to our competitive team. And so it's sometimes difficult in those kinds of situations because our kids feel like I don't have control over what I need to get to where I want to be. So persevering in this means that knowing within our human capacity, we have to just give our best to the opportunities that we have in front of us. And we can explore options for supplemental work But when it can't fit into our life, we just have to use some discernment. So here's my questions. Is this helpful?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm tucking this away because
Yeah.
this applies so much to my younger daughter who
Yeah.
is just sort of crossing into this territory of she has big goals and
More like
dreams for
theater
herself.
stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
she's the Broadway cruise line
Mm-hmm.
goals.
And some years we've had a real focus on character development, and other years it really depends on the staff and the
Yes.
availability of what you have in your context.
Well, and what you've just said, she'd such a commitment to dance that any of our local theater stuff that she might want to get involved with, the rehearsals for any of those plays directly conflict with her dance classes. And it almost always ends up being ballet. I mean, there's a local community theater that does a fall performance for kids her age every year. And that's when they're in the middle of Nutcracker. So she can't participate in that and she can't do competition dance and not be in Nutcracker because the classes for Nutcracker are a requirement for competition. So we just can't make that work for our schedule because she's committed to that and she's unwilling to not do that. So I'm with you all. I'm tracking with you. Hit me with some wisdom.
Right. So here's what I kind of am using as my discerning in this season. And this may change in a year or two, but my oldest only has 3 more years of high school. And so you start closing in on time.
Yeah.
When I see parents of 8, 9, 10, even 11-year-olds, I'm just it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no tap offered for a year, you'll have another opportunity.
Right.
It'll come back around. But when we're in high school, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah.
So this is my discernment. First of all, I ask the question, do I have the margin to fit this supplemental thing into our life? Pretty simply. If so, great, do it. Okay. So if there's an opportunity there, it fits into your already existing life. Great, do it. I know you said your daughter's doing some voice lessons this summer. It doesn't conflict with dance.
Right.
It's working great. That's fine. And it gives her a good little jump start and she can get touch point check-ins later. So that's a great example of it fits in my life. We'll take it on. Okay. But if I'm boxed in by scheduling conflicts or space and time limitations, sometimes it's the person who's qualified to teach you this lives 2 hours away.
Right.
And so that's a limitation as well. So I'm going to ask this. Is there something that's not feeding my values or goals that I could let go of? So it's tricky because a lot of times it means going against the grain or the norms of what's happening in your context. There was a girl that danced with my oldest for a little while who really, really wanted to do a professional ballet company. So she ended up dropping part of what our dance girls, most of them were doing, and getting some extra supplemental ballet. At the expense, she didn't get to take some of the other things that are really fun and that everybody else is doing. But so there's some of that. It's okay, what matters the most to me? Is there something that I can drop that it'll help me feed my goals better? So that's one thing. If there's no possible way for me to add anything else because my current commitments are important for my goals, or maybe just your social well-being and keeping balance in your life, you're I'm not willing to let go of anything I have right now, then the question becomes, and this is where we find ourselves with a lot of stuff, is who are the people in my life that have wisdom and expertise in this context and can help me continually discern if and when I need to prioritize something.
That's good.
You need somebody in your life who gets your goals and gets your values, and there's nothing in it for them.
Right.
It's truly there for you.
Yeah.
And can speak into your life and can just encourage you and be okay, this one, it's fine. You can do it or not do it. But this one, you really need to do. Make it work. Give up something for a season so that you can pursue that.
Yeah.
And so having people who know the world and the context, this doesn't just mean it's your best friend's mom who thinks it sounds good.
Right.
They have to be savvy. They also have to know you and help you stick with the daily grind when it feels like you're not breaking through or getting anywhere. And sometimes all it takes is a single moment to change everything, or a single interaction, a single weekend experience, because a lot of these things are catalysts or connection pieces more than your daily, weekly studio, in our context, stuff is paving the way to set you up for whatever. And like those goal things can change in a moment. I've just watched people who are so grappling for success in a certain niche, like they have this one goal, that they will wear themselves out chasing all these trails, thinking they have to be in all the places with all the things to make this goal happen. And it eats up the time that they could be using for that like quiet perseverance that's just building. So, like, sometimes perseverance isn't just about strength, it's about a level of like being willing to see things that are undone and not move on them immediately.
It feels like patience is the other side of the coin to perseverance. Like they go hand in hand. In
Mm.
order to be good at persevering and pushing through, you have to be patient and willing to wait for the gratification.
Yeah. And so my high schooler, while she only has a little bit of time left to zero in on those last steps, so there are certain things that she needs to do and
Mhm.
moves that she needs to make. But I've watched college age dancers and young adults. I was actually talking to someone really recently who's like 22 and went this whole dance track and then just all of a sudden is pivoting. And if they've put in the long, steady work, they can do it
Mhm.
because they have like a robust foundation.
Yeah.
It makes them very well rounded. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And they can do it smoothly. The ones that struggle are the ones I see that just like laser focus in on something. And then if they don't reach a goal that they were hoping for, they're devastated.
Well, it's like being a one-trick pony versus having a bag of tricks that you can pull from at any moment, depending on what circumstances you find yourself in, or even what opportunities open themselves for you, because you can be the most talented, amazing person on the planet. And we've said this before, there's always going to be somebody better than you, no
Mm-hmm.
matter where you go. And it doesn't mean that you weren't good enough for that opportunity. It just wasn't the right time for you to have that opportunity. And so those kids who are so laser focused on it, when it doesn't meet expectations or go their way, if they don't have perseverance, that's when they find themselves lost without direction.
Sure. And any of these goals they have are going to take that.
Mhm.
I mean, you're going to face rejection. And in fact, I think the ones that it may be the hardest for are the ones that's like they kind of get things easily when they're young because
Yes.
they are very talented. So putting yourself out there with more challenging competition and just where you're a small fish in a big pond a little bit more is usually good for you to kind of
Yes.
help prepare for that.
You have to have thick skin in
Mhm.
anything like this and know that if you get rejected, it doesn't mean that you were bad or not talented or didn't work hard enough. It just means that you didn't get picked that time.
I hear about, Broadway actors and dancers, like, they're basically professional auditioners.
Yes.
That's what their life is. They get a job and it's usually short term. I mean, you have rare occasions where people are on a show for years and years, but that is
That's
not
not the norm.
right, right. And so a lot of declines
Yeah. And
before.
and sometimes it's just a matter of the right person seeing you at the right time. And I know you and I listen to a lot of the same podcasts, but I've heard this about people who dance on cruise ships. It may be like, oh, well, we have a costume that fits someone who is 5'5" and you're 5'7". And while you're a great dancer, you don't fit the one extra costume that we have. And like, there's nothing you can do about that. That is
Right.
the extra costume that they had, and they need to put a body in it.
Right.
Like, it may have absolutely nothing to do with skill or ability.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. All
Yeah.
right, you got another example?
I do. Okay, so mine is that sometimes you might have to persevere a little bit more than the person next to you, and that just is the way that it is,
Right.
because that is life. I see this a lot with my older daughter, and I think I've talked about this before, that she has migraines pretty regularly that cause her to miss a fair amount of school and dance too. And while she wants to be in class, she's not choosing to miss class. She just can't physically go when she
Mhm.
has a migraine. And it is really tough on her because she knows that every time she misses a class, she is missing instruction. She is missing an opportunity to grow and improve. And everybody else who is in class is growing and improving. And so she has to push through that a little bit harder than maybe her friends do. She has to make time to get with someone who was in that class. If it's, I mean, there were several times this spring as they were getting ready for their spring show that she missed some choreo. And so she would get with a friend who was in the class to teach her what she missed that week on a weekend when they weren't at the studio so that she wasn't behind when she went back to class the next week. Or when we have breaks off of dance in the summer or winter break, things like that, she'll pick up some extra private classes to try to make up for just some technique that maybe she missed out on. She got hurt last fall. I know I've talked about that before and missed a lot of ballet, and point especially was difficult when her hip was hurt. And so she tried to make up for that in as many ways as she could by taking private lessons and doing that kind of thing, and her schedule is already spread pretty thin, balancing as much dance as she does and as much, having to keep up with school and things like that, and sometimes she gets really frustrated with that and will just say things like, "It's not fair," and I have to tell her, "You're right, it's not fair, but these are the cards you were dealt, and this is a thing that you have to deal with, and you are gonna have to work harder than someone who doesn't regularly get migraines and miss class for that kinda thing." I mean, the same thing is true of someone who has, like, a lasting injury. I know we've had kids at our studio who got hurt, and even though that injury heals, it can still bother them or flare up from time to time. And that just it's not fair, but that is the hand you were dealt. And you might have to push through harder or more regularly or more often than somebody else. And those are the kind of things that build character in kids. It's like it would be easy to just cry and give up and say it's too hard and I don't want to do this, but if it's something that's really important to you, you have to try to find a way to make it work. And again, caveat from the beginning, there may be times in which, like, if you have an injury and continuing to dance or do this activity is going to cause further damage, don't keep doing it. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying there may be instances in which you just have to do more to succeed at the same level than somebody else that you're around. And that's true of so many things in life. And it is exhausting, but the way you choose to approach that shows your character and it teaches you how to handle those kind of hardships when they come up in stride. I mean, I think my daughter is going to be a lot better for it in the long run as an adult when she does face other challenges. And because she has had to push through, I mean, sometimes she will just go to dance with a migraine and she figures it out and it's kind of miserable, but she knows it's important and just does it anyways. I mean, she has learned the balance between what are things that she can push herself in, and she knows that she has to be somewhere because she's made a commitment, even if it would be easier for her to not go. And when is the time that she actually does need to miss and rest for those kinds of things. So she's learning all of that at, 14, things that a lot of adults have trouble managing.
Yeah. Big life stuff for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You got anything else?
Yeah, this is my third one, my last one. It's just that you will be misunderstood at times and you won't always jive with everyone you work with at times. And that can be teachers, coaches, or teammates. But that's life.
Yep.
And bailing just because people are hard is only going to cost you in your own progress.
Yes.
So if you care about this, I think perseverance also has to do with not letting the people around you hold you back from where you're going. We've had moments where, a teacher was less motivating or unmotivating to one of our kids. And obviously, there's such a thing as like a holistically toxic environment that could be there. And different people's experiences can be different in the same environment.
Yes.
So, disclaimer there. We don't really have time to get into all that today. But I'm just talking about an environment that has been historically healthy for you. And it is the majority healthy for you. But maybe there's one branch of it that it's just not so much for you. And I think a tactic here is just to find what we call people of peace. And so people of peace are people who like you, who welcome you, and who serve you. And so there may, in fact, there actually will be some scattered teammates, coaches, teachers who are not people of peace for you. And we're not meant to be people of peace for everyone. And not everybody is meant to be a person of peace for us. But learning to not let people who are not people of peace for you, not letting them dictate your worth or keep you from working. Being willing to look beyond that will really take you far in life. So it sometimes just comes down to personality differences. A lot of times, some teachers are more strict and others are more playful. It's just kind of how it goes. So finding a context that has a few people who are the total package, they are skilled and experienced in what they're teaching you. They also know how to motivate you to be your best self. Like they're so for you and you feel so valued that you're willing to do the hard work for them. If those people are there, then the small doses of the people who maybe are fun but don't really push you to do your best, or maybe they're highly skilled but they're not as engaging or motivating, it's just great practice and perseverance. Teammates are even more beyond your control. So if there are a few people on your team who make your life hard, but you still have a peer support system.
Mm-hmm.
You have other parents, other kids. Lean into your people of peace and do your best to not give power to the words or actions of a few who are challenging to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if the majority of people in this context are for you, or even if just the right people are, like the ones who can open doors for you,
Mm-hmm.
if those people are for you, it's worth it to learn perseverance and just learn how to work with people who are different from you and maybe you don't jive with as much. There's a book that I've read called How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. And it's this concept of leading up, that like influence actually doesn't come from position or title. It
Mm-hmm.
comes from the authority of our character and the way that we interact with other people. And if we are interacting positively with other people, it's irresistible,
Right.
and like that has way more influence than someone's position or title or label or whatever that they've got, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I know you taught me this, but there's the idea of invitation and challenge, and that you
Invitation being like giving access to someone, letting them
yes,
be close to
letting
you.
them be close to you and knowing that they care about you. The more you know that someone cares about you, the harder that person can challenge you in things because you know that it is coming from a place of love.
Right.
Whereas if someone is only ever challenging to you and there's never any invitation or warmth or knowing that you're cared about, you're immediately going to shut down
It's
from
just
that.
stressful, discouraging.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. Having people, teachers, coaches, things in these contexts who are caring and loving and inviting and warm and let their students know that they care about them ultimately as people are able to push them further. And it is easier to persevere through those hard things when you know you have those type of people, the people of peace in your corner and on your side when things get challenging and tough.
Yep. I mean, I could talk about that stuff all day long. So
It's just so good, and it makes something that is like a feeling that we've all experienced. I mean, sometimes I know I talk about this with my teenager all the time, is that your feelings are valid and they matter, but your feelings aren't facts. And it gives you a context of like why you feel frustrated with people sometimes, or why you might have the tendency to want to shut down or quit or leave when you feel like you have a teacher who isn't as kind or isn't, who is maybe a little bit more strict and you just don't jive with that person. But understanding that this is the way that it works and how people operate just makes it seem a little bit less abstract, and it kind of explains when you have that friction with someone or those negative feelings or just anything that feels difficult and would be easy to walk away from it rather than persevere and push through it. It's when you can look at it and be like, "Oh, I just don't connect well with this person, and that's okay. I don't have to give them the power to influence my decisions in any way." Like, and that's all that it is. It doesn't have to become like a thing.
Totally. And I think we have to continually have these conversations, especially with our middle schoolers. Like, I think that's the age that it's like they start to just, roll their eyes at everything.
Or that's the age that I feel like
The group think of we're against this person can
yes,
happen
or
too. And you have to just teach them to like not get sucked into that.
or blank doesn't like me. Like,
Right,
that is
right.
not what is happening.
Right. Sure. Do you have one more?
So my third one is actually pretty similar to one that you mentioned earlier, and it is persevering and pushing through when maybe you don't really understand. And this could be you talking about a dancer or you as the parent. Maybe you don't understand why your child didn't get put in a certain routine or isn't featured in a dance on stage, but pushing through those things and not necessarily thinking that there's some injustice being done to you, but trusting the leadership and the vision of the people in charge of this organization rather than automatically assuming that someone is against you.
A silly version of this would be like, I've heard people go on a rant about how they can't wear nail polish when they're competing. It's
Yes.
like, is this the hill we want to die on?
Right. Correct. Like it's okay. This isn't the thing to get worked up about of all things. Now, I mean, I thought about this because my Instagram thinks that I own a dance studio. I think yours does too. And so things come across it all the time that I'm like, I don't get emails from parents, but this is like a video from a dance studio owner who gets emails from parents. But talking about like getting emails at 10 p.m. because someone is mad that their kid is in the back row of a certain routine. And I think that sometimes things like that can be really demotivating to kids when they feel like that they're never given an opportunity to shine or they're never being given a chance for something. But pushing through those feelings of, I don't want to say being mistreated or being treated unfairly, because that almost is never what is actually happening. But
Sure.
persevering through those disappointments and those feelings because it's just your time will come. I mean, most good studios give everyone a chance to shine at something throughout the season. You
Yeah.
mentioned this too. That's like you just did this fun thing, this great opportunity. And just because you didn't get this one, like you're just focusing on that thing in front of you. But perseverance when maybe you don't see the whole vision or understand the decisions that were made and knowing that it's probably not personal.
Right. I like the number of things that anybody in any leadership of any organization has to hold, like all the little moving pieces and the stories and the nuance of every person involved that we cannot possibly all know.
And you
It's
can't make,
just,
they're not going to make everybody happy, period,
it's
ever.
impossible.
Yeah.
And so there are going to be always going to be things like that, it may not be for you because it's for the whole,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
And I think it is easy as a parent, when your kid is upset, you want to protect them. You don't want your kid to be upset in these things, but the way you approach it and you handle it and model, like, it's okay if you as the parent are disappointed in the outcome of it too. That's totally natural and normal, but modeling the perseverance through that for your kid when they're in that moment, I think is really important.
Sure. Yep.
All right. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for our discussion on perseverance. But Beth, since it is not really about dance, what is it really about for you this week?
Think for me, it's kind of getting my head wrapped around the concept that it's summertime and that I work a full-time job, but my kids are just like in their free for all life. And
Yes.
so the older they get, the harder it is to piece all of that together and to, I'm like, I want to enjoy summer. And we just got back from vacation and we do that intentionally because my busiest time of the year is summer at work. And I know that they want to enjoy their summer. And I don't want to constantly be like, well, I can't because I'm working,
Yeah.
So we always start the summer with vacation so that we get some quality time together. So we're coming off of that. So that's
Yeah.
really good. But now we're into the whole like, we're in town and I am working. and you guys are not.
Yes.
And so, like, figuring out what our life looks like to still have everybody have a fun time this summer and make all the memories, but be responsible humans as well.
Yes, that is also very similar to what it is about for me this week, which is time management and figuring out like I'm not doing my regular full time teaching job, but I'm still very much doing my travel agent stuff. And so just figuring out working in that time and what my day looks like amidst children who need to be driven somewhere like every hour on the hour. It feels like as soon as I get settled in at home to either like do some chores or get some work done, somebody needs to be picked up or it's time to take them to some activity. So just trying to figure out what my a loose schedule looks like so that we can all function and have fun and not still trying to be folding laundry at 10 p.m. because I didn't have any opportunities to do any of the things I needed to do during the day. So just getting into a rhythm is what it's been about for me.
Yeah, and that's what's hard in summer. There, like, is no rhythm.
No. It's like every week changes. Somebody's at camp and then they come back, and then somebody else is at camp and then they come back. It's never steady, but that's okay. I still feel like it always falls into some semblance of a rhythm, even when it's different.
Well, I need some tips from you then because I don't think ours has much rhythm in the summer. So,
Yep. Well, thank you so much for listening. We hope that if you found this helpful or if you found any nuggets of wisdom in this, that you will share it with a friend. Please always rate and review our podcast. That helps other people find us. You can follow us on Instagram at Not Really About Dance if you have any questions or if something that you heard resonated with you and you want to share a story or some insight, you can email us at notreallyaboutdance@gmail.com. So we can't wait to see you guys back with us next time. We've got some fun stuff coming up in the future, so stay tuned. Bye.